The waiting room held 17 people. Plus, low conversations, the soft rustle of winter jackets as snow melted into damp fabric. It was the kind of ordinary that made everything feel predictable, safe. A Tuesday afternoon inside a military hospital buried deep in Alaska, where storms outnumbered visitors and emergencies were usually simple. A man moved through it with a clipboard tucked lightly under her arm. Her steps were quiet, not cautious, not hesitant, just efficient. She checked names, adjusted a chart, nodded to a patient without breaking stride. 6 weeks into her assignment, she had become exactly what she intended to be. Unnoticed. "Hey, rookie," a voice called from the nurse's station. Dr. Caldwell didn't look up from his coffee as he spoke. "Try not to overthink triage today. Not everything is a crisis." A few of the staff smiled. One of the nurses added, "She flagged a sprained wrist as priority yesterday." "Better safe than sorry," someone else muttered, half amused. Emma didn't respond. She never did. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't need to. She continued walking. First row. Nothing. Second row. Routine. Then, something shifted. Not in the room. In her. It wasn't dramatic. No sound, no visible trigger, just a quiet, internal correction, the kind that didn't ask for permission. Her steps slowed. Then, her eyes moved before her body did. Third row. A man in a gray jacket. Still. Too still. Not the restless discomfort of someone waiting to be seen, not the fatigue of someone sick. Controlled stillness. Emma stopped. 4 seconds. That was all it took. His skin tone wasn't just pale, it was uneven, subtle discoloration beneath the surface. His fingers rested on his knees, but there was a tremor hiding beneath the stillness. His breathing was measured. Deliberate. Like every inhale had to be managed. And his eyes. They weren't drifting. They were tracking. The room. The exits. The people. Emma turned. Walked straight to the nurse's station. "Pull him out of the waiting room," she said quietly. The charge nurse, Dana, didn't even look up at first. He checked in for stomach flu. "It's not stomach flu." That made her look. Really look. Emma didn't raise her voice. Didn't explain. But something in her tone, flat, certain, final, cut through routine. Dana hesitated for half a second. Then nodded. "Room 4's open," she said. "I'll move him." Emma was already walking back. The waiting room didn't notice. It never does. Important moments rarely announce themselves. She stopped in front of the man. "Come with me," she said. He looked up slowly. Not confused. Not relieved. Assessing. Then he stood. Carefully. Like movement required calculation. Emma didn't touch him. Didn't guide him. She walked half a step ahead, letting him follow. Down the corridor. Past the hum of machines. Past the threshold where routine ended. At the isolation bay, she opened the door. "Sit," she said. Edith. Slowly. Deliberately. Dana arrived behind her, clipboard in hand. "What are we looking at?" she asked. Emma didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, opened the camera, and pointed it at the patient. For a moment. Nothing. Then, the image shifted. Subtle. But raw. Static crawled across the screen in faint, restless patterns, not signal loss, not lighting. Interference. The kind most people wouldn't recognize. But she did. She adjusted the angle slightly. The distortion intensified. Dana's voice dropped. "What is that?" Emma lowered the phone slowly. Set it on the counter. "It means he's radioactive," she said. No emotion. No emphasis. Just fact. Dana stared at her. Then at the screen. Then at the man on the bed. "You're serious." Emma picked up the corridor phone. Handed it to her. "Lock this wing," she said. "Now." Dana didn't argue. Didn't question. Because something in the air had already changed. She turned and started making calls. Doors began to close down the hallway. One by one. Magnetic locks engaged. Access panels clicked. The building adjusted. And stayed still, watching the patient. No, she asked. If pus. Just long enough. Harris, he said. She nodded. Like she believed him. She didn't. When did it start? 3 days, maybe 4. His voice was control. To control. Exposure source? He looked at her. Really looked. Measuring. That was the second anomaly. Civilians don't recognize that question. They don't understand what it implies. He didn't answer. Emma didn't push. She picked up a chart. Started writing. Like this was routine. The door opened. Dr. Caldwell stepped in, coffee still in hand. He took in the scene quickly. Closed wing. Isolation bay. Foam on the counter. Emma standing between him and the patient. What's going on? He asked. Radiological exposure, Emma said. Caldwell exhaled softly. Not dismissive. Measure. Based on what? Emma tilted her head toward the phone. Initial confirmation. He picked it up. Looked at the screen. Stud. He shook his head slightly. A phone camera isn't. I know what it isn't, she said. Still calm. Still not looking at him. And I know what it is. He studied her. Then the patient. Then the chart. Professional instinct began to take over. He set his coffee down. Vitals, he said. Emma read them out. Steady. Controlled. Misleadingly normal. Caldwell stepped closer. Ran through his assessment. Standard checks. Questioned. Observations. Emma stepped back. Watching. Waiting. Not for agreement. For realization. 4 minutes pass. That was enough. It wasn't one thing. It never is. It was the pattern. The inconsistencies. The way the symptoms didn't align cleanly. The effort behind the patient's answers. The way Emma had said it without hesitation. Caldwell straightened. Looked at her. How did you know? Before she could answer. The door opened. Dana stood there. Her expression had changed. There are 2 men at the front desk, she said. It paused. They are federal. Silence settled into the room. Ellie. Unavoidable. They're asking for the nurse who admitted the patient in Bay 4. Emma didn't react. She picked up the chart. Looked over information she already knew. Her other hand slipped into her pocket. Touching something unseen. Then she looked at Dana. Tell them I'll be there, she said. A beat. And lock this room. Dana nodded. The door closed. Emma stood still for a moment. Then turned toward the exit. Because she already understood something no one else in that building did yet. This wasn't just a patient. This was a situation. And it was about to escalate far beyond the hospital walls. Outside. The storm pressed harder against the windows. Inside. Something far more dangerous had just arrived. And was the only one who saw it coming. Emma stepped into the corridor without changing her pace. The atmosphere had shifted. It always did when authority entered a space uninvited. The waiting room had quieted not because anyone understood what was happening, but because instinct told them something was wrong. Conversations lowered, movements slowed, eyes followed without appearing to. At the far end, 2 men in dark suits stood near the reception desk. Still. Patient. Not the kind of stillness that waits. The kind that watches. Emma walked straight toward them. No hesitation. No change in posture. You're looking for me, she said. Not a question. The older of the 2 men turned his head slightly, studying her the way someone studies a variable, not a person. Yes, he said. The younger one, Mills, was already scanning past her, his attention drifting toward the sealed east wing. We understand you admitted a contaminated patient, Rourke continued. His tone was calm. Almost polite. We're here to take over. Emma didn't respond immediately. She let the silence stretch just long enough. What's your containment classification? She asked. Mills blinked. Rourke answered. Level 2, pending confirmation. It sounded correct. Close enough, but not precise. Emma nodded slightly, then asked, what's your projected spread radius based on exposure time? It paused. Mills stepped in this time. Vinyl will handle it. Not an answer. Not a real one. Emma's eyes shifted to him. Just briefly. Then, what protocol are you using for internal stabilization during transfer? Silence. This time longer. Neither of them answered. And that was enough. Emma gave a small nod, as if everything made sense now. I'll take you to the attending physician, she said. Then she turned, walking past the nurse's station. She didn't stop, didn't look at Dana, but her voice dropped just enough. Lock everything. Dana moved instantly, because now she understood. The agents followed, not rushing, not forcing, but not letting her out of sight either. At the end of the corridor, Emma stopped, turned toward Trauma Bay 4, then looked back at them. You shouldn't go in without protection, she said. Mills' jaw tightened. We'll be fine. Emma held his gaze. If you're wrong, she said quietly, you won't be leaving this building for 72 hours. A beat. Then she opened the door and stepped inside, leaving them in the corridor. For now. Inside the isolation bay, the air felt heavier. Not physically, mentally. The patient Harker watched her the moment she entered, like he had been waiting. They're here, he said. His voice was weaker now, but clear. Emma adjusted the Roman 4 line without looking at him. I know. His breathing shifted. Not panic. Recognition. They won't treat me, he said. No, she replied. They won't. The monitor beeped steadily, deceptively calm. Harker's eyes narrowed slightly. They knew, he said. Fragments. Controlled. Route north and side. Emma didn't react, but she heard everything. Stored it. Placed it where it belonged. The door opened slightly. Mills stepped in just far enough to see the bed, the monitors. Emma standing beside him without protective gear. We're moving him, he said. Emma didn't turn. You need to leave this room. His tone sharpened. You're making this harder than it needs to be. That was the moment. The shift. Emma turned, finally, and looked at him. Not as a nurse. Not as staff. As someone who understood exactly what he was trying to do. If you move him now, she said, he won't survive the hallway. Mills held her gaze. Used to compliance. Used to authority working. It did, not here. Not with her. The monitor skipped once. Just slightly. Enough. Mills glanced at it. Then back at her. Then turned. And walked out. In the corridor, Rourke was waiting. Well, he asked quietly. He's not stable, Mills said. Rourke nodded slowly. Then looked toward the door. Calculating. Inside. Emma pulled a chair closer. Sat down beside the bed. Harker watched her. How long? He asked. Emma checked the monitor. Then met his eyes. Long enough, she said. If you keep talking. He studied her. Then nodded. What do you need? Emma leaned forward slightly. Her voice lower. Everything else faded. Everything. Outside. Mills stood near the wall, phone pressed to his ear. He's talking, he said. It paused. Then, we don't have much time. Across the corridor, Dr. Caldwell stood with Rourke. This patient is not stable for transfer, Caldwell said. Measure. Firm. Rourke didn't raise his voice. We have jurisdiction. And I have a responsibility, Caldwell replied. The tension held. Balanced. Unresolved. Inside. Parker spoke. Names. Dates. Locations. Fragmented. But precise. Emma didn't interrupt. Didn't rush him. She listened. The way she always had. Absorbing everything. Reacting to nothing. Her phone rested beside her. Recording. Every word. Every detail. Because this wasn't just treatment anymore. This was evidence. Time passed. Measured in breaths. In heartbeats. In the narrowing margin between survival and failure. Emma stood once. Adjusted the Roman 4. Made a small correction. The monitor steadied. Then, back outside. Mills ended his call. Looked toward the door. Then toward Rourke. They want him moved, he said. Rourke didn't respond immediately. His eyes shifted. Toward the isolation bay. Toward Emma. Something in his expression had changed. Not suspicion. Recognition. He had seen this before. Not the situation. The type of person. Someone who didn't guess. Someone who knew. Inside. Emma stopped the recording. Sent it. 3 recipients. No names saved. No confirmation needed. Then deleted it. But not really. She looked at Harker. Again, she said. He nodded. Started over. Clear this time. Stronger. Because now, he understood something too. She wasn't just keeping him alive. She was making sure it meant something. The door opened again. This time, with authority. Open it, Mills said behind her. 2 hospital security officers stood with him. Hesitating. Emma stood. Turn. If you open that door without protection, she said calmly, you're in isolation for 3 days. No emotion. Just policy. The officers stepped back immediately. Mills didn't. He stared at her. You can't stall this forever. Emma met his gaze. I don't need forever, she said. I need 4 hours. Silence. Heavy. Measure. Mills looked at her. Really looked. Then turned away. Because something in him understood. This wasn't going to be simple. Not anymore. At the nurse's station, Emma picked up her clipboard again. Started writing. Routine. Controlled. Normal. Rourke approached. You memorized those regulations for a reason, he said. Emma didn't look up. I memorized them because someone would need them. If pos. Then. You're delaying the inevitable, he said. Emma turned a page. No, she said quietly. I'm finishing what I started. Behind them. The hospital had chosen. Not loudly. Not officially. But clearly. They were holding the line. And for now, that line was Emma. 3 hours passed. Then 3.5. Time compressed. Every minute heavier than the last. Inside the bay, Emma adjusted fluids. Monitored vitals. Made precise, controlled decisions. At one point, her hand paused. Just for a fraction of a second. Something flickered behind her eyes. Memory. Oh. Sharp. Dangerous. Then. But. She finished the adjustment. The monitor stabilized. And then. Parker's breathing evened. Thoroughly. But now. Outside. The sound changed. Engines. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just different. Doors opening. Footsteps. Controlled. Purposeful. Emma looked up. Slowly. Because she already knew. The next phase had arrived. And whatever happened next would decide everything. Not just for the patient, but for her. The sound didn't belong to the hospital. That was the first thing everyone felt. Not heard felt. Engines cutting cleanly instead of idling. Doors closing with intention instead of habit. Footsteps that didn't hesitate at thresholds. The kind of arrival that didn't ask permission. Emma didn't rush to the entrance. She didn't need to. She already understood what it meant. At the nurse's station, conversation stopped mid-sentence. Staff who had been pretending not to watch now didn't bother pretending anymore. Rourke turned toward the front doors. Mills followed a second later. Both of them already recalculating. Because whatever was arriving wasn't theirs. The doors opened once. Clean. And stayed open. Cold air slipped into the lobby, carrying the sharp bite of snow and something heavier authority. 3 figures stepped inside. 2 in uniform. 1 ahead of them. Not rushed. Not scanning. Already aware. Colonel Sarah Akefer. Her presence didn't need introduction. It settled into the room immediately, like a weight everyone recognized without being told. She paused just inside the entrance. Her eyes moved once. Across the nurse's station. Across the 2 agents. Across the hallway leading to the isolation wing. Then, they landed on Emma. For a moment. Nothing else existed. Emma met her gaze. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't explain. Just held it. Akefer stepped forward. Colonel James Harker, she said. Not a question. East Wing, Bay 4, Emma replied. Stable. A small nod. That was all. No surprise. No doubt. Just confirmation. Akefer walked past her. The 2 soldiers followed. Rourke shifted slightly. Not aggressive. Positioning. Colonel, he said calmly, stepping just enough to intercept. This is a federal. This is a classified military patient, Akefer said. She didn't stop walking. Didn't raise her voice. And you're done here. Science. Complete. Mills took half a step forward. Stopped. Because Rourke didn't move. That was the moment. No argument. No escalation. Just understanding. They had lost control. Inside the isolation bay, the air shifted the moment Akefer entered. Not safer. Aligned. Her eyes moved quickly. The patient. The monitors. The Roman 4 lines. The subtle adjustments no one had documented. Then, you held him, Akefer said. Not a question. Emma nodded once. For now. Akefer stepped closer to the bed. Studied the setup. The improvised modifications. The precise corrections. One of the military physicians behind her spoke quietly. This isn't standard protocol. Emma didn't look at him. It couldn't be. He studied the lines again. Then nodded. Slower this time. Because he understood what that meant. Parker's eyes opened. Stronger than before. Vele. But enough. He looked at Akefer. Took you long enough, he said. Her expression shifted just slightly. You picked a difficult place to be found, she replied. His gaze moved past her. To him that. She got here first. Akefer followed his line of sight. Looked at Emma again. Not measuring now. Acknowledging. In the corridor. 2 soldiers approached Rourke and Mills. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just inevitable. You'll come with us, one of them said. Rourke adjusted his jacket. No resistance. No argument. Just one glance toward the isolation wing. Then he turned. Mills hesitated. For a fraction of a second, his eyes flicked toward the door. Toward Emma. Then, he followed. No scene. No noise. Just removal. The kind that doesn't need witnesses to be final. At the nurse's station, Emma stood with the same clipboard she had been holding for hours. Nothing about her posture had changed. Nothing about her expression. But everything around her had. Dr. Caldwell approached slowly. 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He set one beside her. Didn't speak at first. Neither did she. They stood there. In the quiet aftermath. Finally. You want to explain any of that? He asked. Not accusing. Not demanding. Just asking. Emma took a sip of the coffee. Warmth. Grounding. No, she said. He nodded. As if he expected that. You were right, he added after a moment. Emma didn't respond. Because that wasn't the point. Inside the bay. Akefer stepped back from the bed. He'll hold, she said. The physician nodded. Because of her, he added quietly. Akefer didn't disagree. She turned. Walked back toward the corridor. Stopped in front of Emma. The unit wants you back, she said. Direct. Certain. Like it had already been decided. Emma looked at her. For a moment. Then. No. The word didn't echo. It settled. Firm. Vinyl. Akhefar studied her. What? Emma's gaze shifted slightly. Down the corridor. Where nurses moved. Where patients waited. Where machines beeped in steady rhythms. Out there, she said quietly, I counted who didn't make it. It paused. Then. Here, I changed that. Silence. Heavy. Honest. Akhefar held her gaze. Then nodded once. Respect. Not agreement. Understanding. Understood, she said. And stepped past her. Out of the hospital. The soldiers followed. The doors closed. And just like that, it was over. Or at least, that part of it was. The hospital exhaled. Slowly. Carefully. Staff moved again. Conversations returned. Quiet at first. Then normal. But something had changed. Not visible. But permanent. Emma picked up her clipboard. Turned back toward the corridor. Work still needed to be done. It always did. Dana caught her eye from across the station. Gave a small nod. Different this time. Not casual. Not dismissive. Respect. Emma returned it. And kept walking. Room 3. Stable. Room 5. Resting. Room 7. Needs attention. Routine. Exactly how she wanted it. 2 days later. Parker was awake. Not strong. Not fully recovered. But present. Emma adjusted the monitor beside his bed. You knew, he said. Not a question. Emma didn't look at him immediately. Yes. He studied her. Golf operation, he added. She didn't deny it. Why here? He asked. Emma's hand rested lightly on the bed rail. Her eyes on the monitor. Because here, she said, people still have a chance. He nodded slowly. Understanding. Weeks later. The official story surfaced. Carefully written. Carefully limited. Words like containment. Investigation. Operational risks. Parker's name clear. Responsibility assigned. But one detail. Barely mentioned. A military facility in Alaska played a critical role in his survival. No names. No faces. Just stuff. Emma read it during a break. Then set her phone down. And went back to work. Because recognition was never the goal. 3 weeks later. Akhefar returned. No uniform this time. No escort. Just present. She found Emma at the end of a long corridor. Finishing a chart. They asked again, Akhefar said. Emma didn't look up. I know. What do I tell them? Emma closed the chart. Finally met her eyes. Tell them I'm already doing it. A pause. Then Akhefar nodded. And left. The doors closed behind her. The hospital remained. Unchanged. And completely different. Emma moved through it quietly. Adjusting lines. Checking charts. Saving lives. No announcements. No recognition. Just action. Because she hadn't stopped being dangerous. She had just chosen where it mattered. And sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one no one notices. Days pass. Then weeks. The storm outside never really stopped, it only changed shape. Snow became wind, wind became silence, silence became another kind of pressure that settled into the walls of the hospital. Inside, everything looked the same. Monitors hummed. Carts rolled. Voices stayed low, controlled, routine. But beneath that routine, something had shifted. Not loudly. Not officially. But permanently. Emma walked the same corridors. Same pace. Same posture. Same quiet presence. But now, people moved differently around her. Not dramatically. Just enough. A fraction of hesitation before speaking. A second look where there hadn't been one before. Respect that didn't need to be announced. At the nurse's station, Dana handed her a chart. Room 6, she said. Post-op, unstable vitals. Emma nodded. took the chart. Anything unusual? She asked. Dana hesitated. Then, not that I could see, she said. A bit. Then added quietly. But you probably will. Emma didn't react. She just turned and walked. Room 6. A man in his 60s. Surgical recovery. Vitals fluctuating. Nothing obvious. Nothing urgent. Not right. Emma stepped closer. Watched. Listened. Adjusted one line. Then another. A small correction. The monitor stabilized. Quiet. Controlled. Effective. She moved on. That was how it always went. No attention. No acknowledgement. Just results. Back at the station. Two younger nurses were whispering. Is it true? One asked. I heard you. They stopped when Emma broached. Too late. She had already heard. She didn't say anything. Just placed the chart down. Moved to the next task. Because whatever they thought they knew didn't matter. Across the room. Dr. Caldwell watched her. For a long moment. Then he walked over. You're doing it again, he said. Emma didn't look up. Doing what? Seeing things no one else sees. She turned a page. It's my job. Caldwell shook his head slightly. No, he said. It's not. It paused. Then? You could have said something, he added. Explain, back then. Emma finally looked at him. Would it have changed anything? He didn't answer. Because he knew the truth. It wouldn't have. Respect wasn't given because of explanations. It was given because of results. And she had already proven hers. Later that night, the hospital quieted again. The kind of quiet that only exists after midnight. Emma stood alone in the supply room. Restocking. Organizing. Routine. Her hand paused on a tray. Just for a second. The sound in her head shifted. Not the hum of machines. Something older. Sugar. A memory trying to surface. Radiation alarms. Protective suits. Voices through static. She closed her eyes briefly. Inhale. Exhale. The room returned. The present locked back into place. She finished the tray. Set it down. And walked out. Because that part of her didn't belong here. Not anymore. The next morning, a briefing played quietly on a television in the staff lounge. Do this. Subtitled. Ongoing investigation. Federal oversight. Containment protocols. No names. No details. Just enough to exist publicly. A nurse glanced at the screen. Then at Emma. Was that she started? Emma poured herself coffee. Didn't look up. It doesn't matter, she said. And that was the end of it. Because for her, it truly didn't. What mattered was the next patient. The next moment. The next decision. Later, Emma entered Harker's room. He was sitting up now. Stronger. Still recovering. But present. You're still here, he said. Emma adjusted the monitor. Yes. He studied her. They offered you a way back, he said. She didn't respond. They always do, he added. It paused. But why didn't you take it? Emma checked the Roman 4 line. Made a small adjustment. Then answered. Because I already know what happens out there. He nodded slowly. And here? She looked at him. For the first time, she said, I can stop it. Science. Heavy. Honest. Harker leaned back slightly. You're not hiding, he said. No, Emma replied. You're choosing. She didn't answer. Because that was enough. Days later, a new nurse joined the shift. Nervous. Certain. Emma found her standing at the end of the corridor, staring at a chart like it might give her answers. You're overthinking it, Emma said. The nurse startled slightly. I don't want to miss anything, she admitted. Emma stepped beside her. Looked at the chart. Then at the patient through the glass. Don't look at the paper, she said. Look at the person. The nurse hesitated, then nodded. Emma adjusted the chart slightly. Start there, she said, and walked away. Not teaching, not explaining, just guiding. The way she always had. Weeks turned into routine. Routine turned into normal. But every now and then, something would happen. A moment. A shift. A detail no one else caught. And Emma would be there. Quiet. Precise. Unseen until it mattered. Because that was who she was. Not a legend. Not a ghost. Not a story. Just a nurse. Doing the work. Saving the ones who could still be saved. And leaving the rest behind. Where they belonged. In the past, the snow outside continued to fall. Soft. Endless. Indifferent. Inside, life continued. One patient at a time. One decision at a time. One moment at a time. And somewhere in that quiet rhythm, a truth remained. The strongest people in the room are rarely the loudest. They don't announce themselves. They don't demand recognition. They just act. And when it matters, they're the ones who step forward. Even when no one asked them to. Even when no one believed them. Even when it cost them everything. Because for them, it was never about being seen. It was about making sure others survived. Winter deepened. The kind of cold that didn't just live outside, it pressed inward, settling into bones, into walls, into the quiet spaces between thoughts. St. Haven moved through it the same way it always did. Steady. Disciplined. Unchanged on the surface. But the people inside it were different now. They watched more closely. They listened more carefully. And sometimes, without meaning to, they looked to Emma before making a decision. She never acknowledged it. Never encouraged it. Because attention wasn't something she trusted. It had a way of changing things. And she preferred things simple. Predictable. Controlled. The ER doors opened late that evening. Cold air swept in with a stretcher. Incoming trauma. A medic call. The rhythm shifted instantly. Controlled urgency. Footsteps quickened. Voices sharpened. Emma turned. Already moving before the full report was spoken. Ill. Mid-30s. Severe hypothermia. Possible internal injuries. Found near a restricted perimeter. That last detail. Most didn't register it. Emma did. The patient was pale beyond normal cold exposure. Skin almost gray beneath the fluorescent light. His breathing shallow. Irregular. Get him warmed gradually, Caldwell ordered. No rapid temperature correction. Emma stepped closer. Watched. Listened. There it was again. That quiet shift. That instinct. She moved to the monitor. Checked the rhythm. Lit. His pupils. A slight delay. Too slight for most. Not for her. Slow it down, she said. Caldwell looked at her. We already are. Not enough. A beat. He hesitated. Then nodded. A just warming protocol, he said. The staff complied. Because now, they trusted her enough to pause. The patient's body reacted. So, but measurable. Good catch, Caldwell muttered. Emma didn't respond. She never did. Minutes passed. Stabilization continued. Then, the man's hand moved. But deliberate. Emma leaned slightly closer. His lips parted. A whisper. They're watching. Barely audible. Caldwell frowned. Delirium, he said. Emma didn't answer. Because she had heard something else. Not the words. The intent behind them. She stepped back. Adjusted the Roman 4. Then quietly. Keep him here, she said. Caldwell glanced at her. That's the plan. No transfers, she added. A pause. Then, okay, he said. Because something in her tone made it not a suggestion. Outside, a vehicle passed slowly. Too slowly. Emma noticed. Didn't look. Just registered it. because patterns matter. And this didn't fit. Hours later, the patient stabilized. But enough. The ER returned to its quieter rhythm. Emma stood at the nurse's station, updating charts. Dana approached. "You've been right a lot lately," she said. Emma didn't look up. "Lately?" Dana smiled slightly. "Fair. It pass. Then? You ever going to tell us?" Dana asked. Emma turned a page. "No. Not cold. Not dismissive. Just final." Dana nodded. Because she understood now. Some things weren't meant to be explained. They were meant to be trusted. Later, the patient woke. Briefly. Disoriented. But aware. Emma was there. Of course she was. "You're safe," she said. He looked at her. Really looked. And something in his expression shifted. Recognition. Not of her face. Of something deeper. "You're not just a nurse," he whispered. Emma adjusted the monitor. "Yes," she said. "Oh." He tried to speak again. Filled. Drifted back into sleep. The moment passed. Like most of them did. Quietly. Without explanation. Outside. The same vehicle returned. This time, it didn't pass. It stopped. Emma saw it. Through the reflection in the glass. Didn't turn. Didn't react. But she knew. Because some patterns repeat. And when they do, they mean something. Caldwell stepped beside her. "You see that?" he asked quietly. Emma nodded. "Yes. Problem. A beat." "Then?" "Not yet," she said. But her eyes remained on the reflection. Because she understood something most people didn't. Danger doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, it waits. It observes. Plumps. And when it moves, it's already too late to stop. Unless someone saw it first. Emma picked up her clipboard. Turned back toward the corridor. Because whatever was coming, she would meet it the same way she always did. Prepared. Unseen. And ready. Not for recognition. Not for reward. But because that's what needed to be done. And that was enough. If you were in that hospital, would you notice the signs? Or would you miss them too? Like, subscribe, and comment what you would have done.